Hey there, Jim from Ludus Games here, and I'm bringing you another deck today. Excuse me. Today's general we're going to be talking about is Krenko, the mob boss. He's 2 red and 2 colorless for legendary creature, Goblin Warrior. It's a 3/3, and tap him and put X 1/1 red Goblin Creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of goblins you control. He is, in my opinion, the best Goblin general out there. He just almost pukes out endless hordes of goblins to attack your opponents with. So he can be built in many different ways. You can just build them pure goblins and just crank them out and smash face with a bunch of goblins. The other thing I want to say about Krenko is he's a pretty competitive deck, and he's fairly affordable to build. You can put them together for not that much money. There are some cards in here that cost some dollars, but you can easily change those out for cards that do the same or have the same sort of function. But pretty much he can be built on the cheap. So if you're starting out, you want to try it out, try EDH out as a format, he's a good general to try out on your first go. Pretty easy to build, and it's fairly linear. You don't have to worry about too many complicated interactions. You don't have to worry about the stack. It's just basically, I'm going to make goblins and I'm going to attack you with them, and I'm going to pressure your life total. Okay, so let's look at the rest of the deck. We have 36 lands, basically 30 mountains, okay, there we go, there's 30 of them. And we have 6 non-basics, a Temple of the False Gods, a Valakut, Vesuva, Thespian Stage, Ancient Tomb, and Myriad Landscape. Temple of the False Gods is one you can easily change out, I would say, in play testing. If you get it early on, it could hinder you because it's conditional on having 5 lands in play. So I mean, it's one of those that you can swap out. It doesn't affect you too much because it's 1 out of 35. But mid to late game, it's a decent card. Valakut here, I want to talk about this. This is a Valakut package. Basically, you have Valakut, you have a land that can copy Valakut, and another land that can copy Valakut. And you meet the conditions of 5 mountains in play. And let's say you have these hypothetically in play. That's every time you drop a mountain, that's 9 points of damage you can direct. 3 here, 3 there, 3 here. That's player or creature. So I like to, it's a bit of extra reach. It's nice to have. There's a search package in here. Well, actually, 1 card that searches out the Valakut that I'll show you later. Mana rocks. I don't have very many. You can certainly add more. This is an easy deck to adjust, and if there's cards in here that are out of your budget range, you can adjust them for mana rocks or for other goblins. What I will say is try to keep your mana rock cost down. Anything more than 3 is a little iffy. You want to really get this deck speeding up. So these are the mana rocks that I put, and I count Sculpting Steel as a mana rock because 90% of the time it's copying just that, a mana rock for 3 mana. It also gives me the flexibility of copying other artifacts, obviously, so it's really good, but it's in here as a count for my mana rocks. Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Coalition Relic, Caged Sun, and Soul Ring. Again, you can change these out. These 2, Caged Sun and Coalition Relic, if you have access to Mana Crypt or any other zero costing mana, fast mana, you can easily change these out. Okay, those are the mana rocks. Then I have my other artifacts, utility artifacts. There's a few of them in here. Helm of Possession. You have so many tokens. It's not a big deal to sacrifice 1 to gain possession of an opponent's creature. Erratic Portal. You'll see I have some goblins that have ETB effects enter the battlefield, like Goblin Commando. I think you play him, he gets 3 goblin tokens. It's nice to reset him. The other thing with the portal is I can use this 2 ways. I can use it to bounce opponent's creatures, and I can use it to bounce Krenko. So Krenko gets targeted in response, I can bounce him. The only thing you have to remember, Keep an eye on your opponent's mana with the portal because it is restrictive. It's pay 1, tap it, return target creature to owner's hand unless its controller pays 1. So you really have to keep an eye out. But this, people love to tap out and then forget about this card. It's like, oh, let's go return a creature to your hand. Illusionist Bracers, because who doesn't like to copy Krenko's ability? 1,000-year elixir, it gives Krenko's ability haste, and you get to use it over again. Greaves, because it protects Krenko and gives him haste. Skull Clamp, for obvious reasons. You put them on all those tokens to, you put the clamp on the tokens to green. Card draw. There's the Expedition map. This searches out Valakut 95% of the time, or a land that copies Valakut. Eldrazi Monument, because who doesn't like to make all their tokens indestructible? Yes, you have to sacrifice one at the beginning of each upkeep, but your upkeep, I should say. But you know what? Small price to pay, and you're making tons of tokens anyways. Sensei's Top to filter through your deck. Mind's Eye to draw cards. Rings of Bright Hearth again to copy Krenko's ability. Obelisk of Erd. This is a good card because I rarely ever use actual mana to pay for this because it's got Convoke and it's colorless. You just basically make a bunch of tokens and then you get those tokens to produce the mana you need to cast this. You name Goblins and now you have 3/3 Goblins coming into play. You have a Chroma's Memorial, because who doesn't like to give their creatures all these cool things? It's mainly in here because of haste. It gives my tokens haste, it gives Krenko haste. But, you know, in addition, it gives them flying and first strike and vigilance and trample and protection from black and protection from red. So that's really good. Now, be careful, the protection from red, if you're targeting with anything that has red, this is going to hinder you. But it's still amazing to have. And then you have Phyrexian Altar, Thorbite Staff. Now this is one of those cards, it's a sack outlet. It's costly, but you can easily replace this with an Ashnod's Altar that's affordable. The Altar gives you colorless mana, whereas this gives you colored. You couple that with a Thorbite Staff, and basically this is on Krenko. You tap Krenko, you know, you make a bunch of tokens, you sacrifice the token to your altar, giving you colored mana, and then you're untapping, this is untapping Krenko, okay? And then rinse and repeat. And that's just infinite. If you have like, you know, this in play, you can kill everybody in one shot. And then Coat of Arms is usually a win con. It's a 1-card win con when you have all those goblins in play. Because usually you have like 30 goblins is easily enough to kill, you know, 2 or 3 opponents. So those are my artifacts that are not mana rocks. Now I'll look at my spells. I only have 4 of them in the deck. I found that I want to be making tokens, turning sideways, and I'm not caring too much about interactive spells. But certainly, again, this is one of those things that you can adjust. Gamble for Early Tutor. Battle Hymn gives me mana for each creature. Brightstone Ritual gives me mana for each goblin. And then Warp World. I want to talk about Warp World for a second. This is a cool card in this deck, and I really enjoy it. You might find you have some fun with this. Usually with Krenko, your permanent count is a lot higher than your opponent's. And when you're reshuffling, you're shuffling tokens back in and getting value, you know, in real permanence. So all these cool goblins and enchantments, you see I have a big enchantment package. When those come out and play, it's great. And I'm just exchanging them for tokens. And at the same time, I'm messing with my opponent's board states. Now, mind you, you may see something really nasty come on your opponent's side, but hopefully at that point when you're like switching 30 permanents out to their 10, you'll be in a position to win. So, but I found this card to be a lot of fun, and I kept this in. Now you can replace this with, oh, what's the red spell? It basically takes control of all creatures. It's the same CMC, I believe, 8 mana. And you, you know, basically take control of all creatures, swing with all creatures, and you win the game with that. So you can easily replace, I forget the name of the spell. It's just, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, so that's a spell you can exchange for Warp World. But, want to have fun, That's the card. I'm going to talk about my enchantment package. The reason I went with a heavier enchantment package is because I wanted to have reach outside of turning sideways. Oh, I just shifted the camera. I apologize for all the camera shakiness. I'm in another location, so I'm trying something new out. Anyway, I wanted to have reach. You know, someone plays a moat against Krenko, and it's basically you can't do anything. Unless you give him flying somehow. I mean, there's ways. You saw Eldrazi Monument gives him flying, but I mean, that's you relying on one card. So I put some reach into the deck. And we'll go over it. It's in enchantment form. This is not it, but this is a decent enchantment because it gives all your creatures haste and +2/+0. So in the Web of War. Vicious Shadows. This is one of those that gives you reach, right? If you have a sack outlet like the Altar or the Phyrexian Altar, you're sacking creatures. Every time you sack a goblin, a guy takes damage with the amount of cards they have in their hand. Blue mages who love to draw cards, this card's for you. You know, so I can pretty much make, let's say in one turn, someone's got 7 cards in hand. In one turn I make, it's not, you know, out of the realm of possibilities that I make 12 goblins on a turn. Well, you know, sack a goblin, take 12 points of damage. Sack a goblin, take 12 points of damage. Sack a goblin, sorry, 7 points of damage. You know, you sack 3 goblins, that's 21. Right? Another 3, that's 6. That's 42 points of damage. It's pretty crazy. So this gives you some reach. Perforos, this gives you ultimate reach because it damages all your opponents. Forget the rest of this text. It doesn't matter. All that matters whenever a creature comes into play, under your control, Perforos does 2 damage each opponent. That's the important side. You know, again, you tap Krenko, create 12 tokens, you've just done 24 damage to everybody. Right? That means they're dead on the next turn if they do not interact with your board state. So that gives you tons of reach. Quest for the Goblin Lord. It's easy. I think the limit on this is 5 counters, and basically all your creatures get +2/+0. This is one of those ones you can get rid of, but it's an early drop. It's a 1 drop. It gives you something to do on turn 1. That's one of the other reasons I like to play it. Warstorm Surge. At the very least, when a creature enters the battlefield, you know it does damage equal to its power to target creature or player. Yes, it helps your opponents, but you're usually going to wait and play this when you're in a position to pump Krenko or turn Krenko's ability on and create 12 or more tokens. So this is a way to reach people without having to attack. Fervor, because who doesn't like to give all their tokens haste? Shared Animosity. If you attack with 12 tokens, they all get 11/+0 each one of them. That's easily enough to kill somebody. Furnace of Wrath. It just doubles damage. Again, if you have something like a Surge with a Furnace in play, those tokens are coming in. Let's say you have an Obelisk of Verd out, and there are 3/3 Goblin tokens coming into play now. Now they're doing 6 points of damage. I mean, it gets out of hand really fast. Same with Gratuitous Violence. It's only when you're permanents. Again, you can go down on these. I mean, certainly you only need 1, and I would recommend going with the Gratuitous Violence if you had to pick one of the 2. But I just like to get this. I like my average to be up on getting 1 of these, and I'm going to wait on the Furnace to play it when I'm in a position to do like a kill shot, right? So I'm going to be careful because it could hurt you as well. Because the way it reads is if a source would deal damage to a creature or player, it deals double that damage to that creature or player instead. So it works for your opponent's sources as well. So again, great if you have a kill shot set up. And then last but not least, Goblin Bombardment, which is an all-star for 2. Basically, sack Goblin, deal 1 point of damage, right? So this is what I'm talking about. You put yourself in a position for, is it 6 mana, and it's all red, so you don't have to worry about colors. But 6 mana, you play the Bombardment, you tap Krenko, you play Furnace. Now you're chucking your goblins for 2 points of damage, right? On top of that, if you have like Warstorm Surge that hits them on the way in, or Vicious Shadows that hits them on the way out. Think about this: Vicious Shadows. You sack a goblin to this, dealing 2 points of damage because Furnace is in place. Vicious Shadow says, how many cards in your hand, Blue Mage? Oh, you have 7? We'll take 14 points of damage. That was only for one goblin leaving play. Again, if someone tries to target in response, you can do all those shenanigans, but that's how you can kill somebody without having to attack. So those are the enchantments. I'll go over my non-goblin creatures. I have, 6 of them? Chancellor of the Forge, just because it makes tokens, goblin tokens at that. Feeds Krenko. Fury Stroke Giant is another way you can kill people without having to turn sideways. When he comes into play, all your creatures have tapped, deal 2 points of damage to target creature or player until the end of the turn. He's also got Persist. But besides that, then you wait to set this up. And when you have tons of goblins, all you need is just 21 goblins, which is not hard to get at with Krenko. Play this, tap your 21. They do 2 points of damage each. That's 42 damage. That's opponent dead, right? Urbrask, the Hidden, gives all your goblins haste. It also taps any creatures come into play tapped from your opponent's side. Ogre Battle Driver, again, gives your creatures haste when they come in, and +2/+0. Rage Thrower is another one of those cards that gives you reach whenever another creature dies, even an opponent's creature. It deals 2 damage to target player. So again, you can sack goblins, targeting one player and using like, any one of those other enchantments, Vicious Shadows targeting another, right? So really good. It gives you that reach. And Kozilek, because some of you may have noticed from my videos, I like to include Kozilek. He protects from mill strategies. He also draws you cards. He's also an Eldrazi that can be destroyed with a sweeper. So people have lots of chances to interact with this before it swings. Oh, by the way, it does have Annihilator 4, which is awesome. Some people don't like it, but I think this is fair game. He's not indestructible. He can be targeted. He can be taken control of. He's susceptible to sweepers and the rest of that jazz. So I think it's fair. But anyways, he's there for draw and for protecting against mill. Those are my non-goblin creatures, and I'll take you through my goblins. Again, goblins, you can change it up any which way you so choose. Nothing's set in stone, but obviously, there are certain goblins in here that you'd want to keep no matter what. Goblin Pile Driver, just because he gets buffed when he attacks with other goblins, he can kill shot one guy. You just attack. He's got pro blue, so there's that blue mage that you don't like, and all right, I'm gonna attack you with like 13 goblins or 20 goblins, and then he gets +2/+0 for each goblin. Skirk Fire Marshal, he can end games by himself. Tap 5 on tap goblins you control. He does 10 damage to each creature and each player, right? You can stack the damage with him, and you can end a game. Again, another way to reach opponents without having to attack. Tuck, he just blows up an artifact. Goblin Matron goes to search for any goblin. Adaptive Automaton is a goblin. You name him when it comes in, and he just buffs your other goblins. Warbreaker Trumpeter. Here's a goblin that's I like to reset him with my artifact that I was talking about earlier. Basically, I like to play him early, like this, but you can also morph him. When you play him morphed and you flip him up for 1 red XX, you get that many goblins into play. So late game, you can reset him. Early game, it gives you a goblin count. Late game, you can reset him to make tons of goblins. Beetleback Chief, he has an ETB. makes tons of goblins. Grenzo Havoc Reaper, this guy's really cool. I just added him recently, and he's awesome. Basically, you can, when a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you choose one. Either you go to target creature, or exile top card of that player's library until the end of the turn. You may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it was mana of any colors to cast it. I mean, oh, you can, with tons of goblins, you can rip through a person's deck in no time with that. Goblin Sharpshooter, another one of those cards that if you add with the Thornbite Staff, it's an infinite, basically machine gun. You can just take guys out. So basically, you sack a goblin, do 1 point of damage, he untaps. I think he just does it by himself. Yeah, he does. When a creature dies, untap him. So basically, he just is a machine gun. You know, tap him, 1 point, you know, sack a goblin, untap, and just, you know, rinse and repeat. Goblin War Chief makes your guys, make your goblins have haste and cost 1 less. Goblin Chieftain, haste, gives your other goblins haste and anthem. War Marshal makes tokens. Goblin Surgeon is a sack outlet, also regenerates your goblins, but you have to sack a goblin. Foundry Street Denizen, because when you make 30 tokens, he's a 31, right? You know, he's got 30 attack power. It's pretty crazy. Goblin Room Blaster, because, you know, why not destroy a non-basic land? Goblin Bushwhacker, he can give your guys haste and a buff when he comes into play. Sting Scourger can bounce other creatures. Jeering Instigator, this is one of those ones I like to play as a morph first. Unmorph, take control of target creature. You can really catch guys, and again, you can reset it with your artifact. Goblin King, because Mount Walk and Anthem, why not? Siege Gang Commander, because he makes tons of tokens and you can reset them. And the all-star of the deck, Skirk Prospector. Basically, he's a Phyrexian Altar. You sack goblins for mana, and if I play a Matron early on, he's usually the goblin I'm going to get, because, you know, you can make tons of mana, tons of goblins, and who doesn't like that? It's also a sack outlet, right? It gives you, it enables your reach cards. So those cards that give you reach really hinge on having sack outlets. If you've noticed, there's a few of them in here. Certainly you can adjust the deck any which way you so choose to make it more unique and more your own. But I would definitely make sure you build into your strategy ways to get and have reach beyond turning sideways. You know, turning sideways is a great strategy. Don't get me wrong, and it's great. I've won plenty of battles that way. But sometimes, like again, someone plays a moat against Krenko, and what are you going to do? You're going to get bogged down. You won't be able to attack unless you get rid of the moat. And as you've seen, I do not run hardly any interactive spells. So I'm trying to cast Krenko quick and make him big quick and kill people fast. And you know, this deck seems to run really well. I would suggest building it this way, giving it a shot, and then adjusting from there. And any card that you can't afford, you can simply swap out for something else that does something similar, or for just another goblin if you can't afford the card that's in here. Anyways, that's my Krenko the Mob Boss deck. I hope you enjoyed that. You know, if you're a first-time EDH player, I recommend giving this a shot on the cheap, and see if you like the format and if you like the general. And if you do, great. And then you know, post any comments. If you make any adjustments, post those. If not, hopefully you like it, and we'll bring you another video soon. Jim from Ludus Games. Talk to you soon. Peace.